All right, this is another bottle build I'm going to do in Shaper 3D. This one's going to be made out of two lofted surfaces with a slight different feature to them, and I'm going to put them together to make one solid. So this is what this bottle is going to look like. We're going to have the compound curve here at the bottom, this nice negative curve coming up into this other top shape, which will be a ruled surface, and eventually it'll have an integrated closure at the top, which I'll do in another tutorial. So let's bring in our sketch planes. I have all these set up to do these functions here. All right, so the first one we're going to do is a loft here. Now, I've noticed lofting, depending on the order I select these, I'm going to select that circle first, and then I'm going to select this oval, and then I'm going to go to my loft tool. And now we can see the loft is not straight up. We have this negative curve that's occurring. I'm not sure exactly why that's doing it. It's probably doing a tangency from that top circle down. Might be just an integrated feature that they have there. But if we just select it in a different order, if I select the oval first and then go up to the circle and then do my loft here, I should get a nice straight edge. There we go. So that's straight up. That's a perfectly lofted surface. It is kind of a conical shape, but I can wrap graphics and labels on that. So that's all ready to go. So I'm going to perform this Boolean operation by selecting this source here. And all I'm really doing is extruding that across the front to the back. And what it's going to do, it's going to divide that solid into these two pieces. So I want this one at the top. This one at the bottom, I do not want. So I'm just going to double select that and delete that. So now I have this top part. So this next loft, I'm going to use that resulting curved surface that I have down here. I'm going to select that. Not the entire body, but just that surface. And then I'm going to select this other surface down here at the bottom. And I want to loft those two together, just like I lofted this other part. But I need some guide surfaces because I do not want it to go straight up like I did the other part. So I'm going to shift and I'm going to select these guidelines that I've created here. So I have 4 of them, front and back. So now with all that selected, it's going to loft these two surfaces and it's going to use those guidelines to make that shape. So it's quite a nice function. I'm still using the loft tool. I'm going to click on the loft tool and there it is. And it creates that shape really nice and clean and gives you those negative curves. So the goal here was to get these negative curves to line up with this edge in here. So I have enough detail, enough purchase, enough of an edge there so that that edge will stay nice and clean and we can see it. If I blend that too smoothly, we won't see the edge. So that took a little bit of back and forth to get the sources correctly. But this is how this is going to work. So this is my geometry without doing any radiuses or anything like that at this point. So it's quite clean. I am going to use this as a guide for making our foam models in class. This will be one of our exercises. I'm going to export the line work for this and create some templates, and we're going to carve this out of foam. So I'm going to show a sequential line of events to do that. And then eventually I'm going to take this and we're going to detail this, and I'm going to add some radiuses and detail the closure to finish this up. So this is the first part of this whole tutorial. So let's oh, here we go. I was going to get rid of those. So here's our object. So what we need to do to get this into drawings is we just have to go up here to our areas. Here we have modeling, visualization, which is rendering. And then we have our drawing. So I'm going to create another drawing here. And it's going to ask me what I want. So right now, I don't have this connected with any radiuses. I'm keeping these lines very clean so I can use it for a template. So what I want to do is select both of these bodies, and I want to make a drawing from this. So all I have to do is say next, and it asks me what kind of page. So I'm going to do 8.5 by 11, and I'm going to do a vertical, and I'm going to do it full scale, so 1:1, and I think I'm good. So now it has this nice clean setup piece of art here. So I'm going to double select this this kind of 3/4 view because I really don't need that for this particular layout. I'm going to select this top. It's going to move this up, get that up closer to the top of the page so I have a little room. I'm going to go to my page layout title block, and I'm going to do empty sheet because I don't really need that kind of information at this point. So this fits in here pretty nice. So here I have my top view. So that circle represents the very top of the bottle, and the oval represents the bottom of the bottle and even this section in the middle. So we're going to take some calculations. I think I have that lining up perfectly. So since it's axonometric, it's probably the same oval. And then, of course, we have our side view, and the most important thing is our front view. So I'm going to export this as a DWX, DWG, or DXF. Those are both great drawing files, or we can use PDF. And I can bring these into Illustrator, and we'll get vector lines. And then we can manipulate these vector lines or duplicate it and set up the line work that I'm going to need to create the patterns that we're going to use to create a foam model. So I don't need to save this again, but that's how we get that information out of the 3D data file and get that into Illustrator so we can work with that. Okay, so that's building the beginning of this bottle. I'll continue this tutorial by doing the detailing for some of the radius. So we automatically have our draft angles for our moldability. It's a little different than the other bottle build. So there would be a parting line right down the side, but since I have all these curves integrated into this, we can get this right out of the mold. And I have a great ruled surface at the top for our branding. Okay, so we have the geometry built for this shape, exported the 2D drawing so we can make our foam model and templates from this design. So I'm just going to add a few details to finish this off for rendering purposes. It won't be mechanical for exporting STLs or anything, but it'll just be for an aesthetic approach. So I'm going to put a little detail up here for the closure, and then I'm going to put a label shape on this ruled surface. So the closure here is going to be integrated. It's not going to be a separate part like I've done in some of the other tutorials. It'll be part of this. So I'm actually going to trim away from this shape to make my closure details. So to do that, we're going to add construction planes. I'm going to add a construction plane that's perpendicular, parallel on the same plane as that top surface. So let's just click on that. So now we have this gray surface on the top. And that is a panel that we can work on, and I can do things. So I can actually take this panel. I'm going to, hold on, let me just say yes. I'm going to select that. So I can move this around. I just started from this top plane and moved it down so I can put this into position. I'm going to use this to trim from my main body here to create my closure components. So I have two of these already in position. So I'm just going to go back and eliminate that and bring in the two planes that I've created in that same way. And I have those here. So what I can do is I can go under my tools, split body, and I'm going to select this body here. And I'm going to take this first plane and it trimmed that. It shows me in line what I had just done. So I'm going to say yes. And then we're going to go back to the tools and do this again. Split body. So I'm going to select this main body and then this plane underneath here. And then now I have those two selected, or those two parts created. So we can take away these two planes. So those are ready to work with. I'm going to put like a little finger detail on this bottom one to make it look like it's an actual molded part. So let's bring in the sketches here, and I'm going to zoom in to this one here. So I have this half moon shape that I've created. I've created a sketch right there. So let's select that. And I'm going to take that and I am going to revolve this. So here's my revolve tool. I'm going to revolve that on this center line. That's part of this geometry. So that's 360. I brought that all the way around, so I have a nice solid shape there. So I'm going to difference that from this bottom part. So let me say, okay. And let's go back to, hold on, I'm going to select bottom part. Let me double click on that. So I selected that piece, and now I want to difference that from that. So let's go to tools over here. And I'm calling it difference. They call it subtract. It's the same type of function. So I'm going to select that subtract. And I'm going to select this part. So it took it away from that. Now, I believe I had this on keep original. So I can, okay, let's just do done. I'm going to select that piece right there. I'm just going to get rid of that. So now I have that curve. So let me just take a look. So all I've done was make that nice little curved shape in there that goes inside. So I'm not figuring out how to mold this, but that would be this sort of a finger little detail that would be in this closure. So I'm going to go back and radius that a little. But let's do this other part right here. I've created this oval. Let's look at this from the front view. So I just sort of kind of estimated this and put this sort of right in the front there to see how that might look. I'm going to use that as a label shape. So right now that's two-dimensional and it's sitting in front visually. So I want to take that shape and actually imprint it on that front surface, which is a cool curved ruled surface. So we need to take a look at that. So let's go this way. And I'm going to go, I think it's under my tools. And we have project, they call it. So it's going to ask me select items to project. So I'm going to select that first. And I want to project that onto that surface. So it just did that. So I'm going to say yes. So now that oval has been created as a piece of geometry, but it's on that surface. So now I can get remove these sketches, and I have that on there. So this will come into play here when I start to add color and make this a little more relevant. All right, so let's move in here. I'm going to select a few of these and make some radiuses. So let's take, select that edge there, and I have this little arrow. So I'm just going to radius this a little, bring that in. So when we render that, it has a little bit of a little more of a realistic feel to it. So that looks good. And let's see what part that is, body. Okay, so I have other bodies in here. So let me figure out which one I have here. It's probably down here. That's body. Okay, so we have this. So I'm going to select this one and make that a little bit of a radius edge too. That'll help give us that sense of sort of reality, like it's a little area there on the top of the bottle. It has a little bit of radius. So we'll do something about like that. And we'll say, okay, oh, that's a little too big. It was a little hasty. So let's select that. And move this out a little. Not too much. Some of these closures can get integrated nicely. So it's just a little bit of radius there. All right, so let's go back to my list. I'm going to bring that one back and let's take, I'm going to leave that. And I'm going to do this one also. So let's deselect that. So let's take, see which edges I want to do. I think we'll do this one. And I think we'll do this one. I don't think I necessarily need to do that. That's going to be down underneath. So let's see if we can radius this a little bit. Okay. Maybe a little more. I'm just sort of kind of just eyeballing this. Okay, let's try that. And let's bring these bodies back. Okay, there's my base. And my top. Okay, so this is ready to just sort of add some color to this, and we'll see how this works. Oops, I lost my top. Where did it go? There it is. Okay, so if we start coloring these in, we can get a nice look for this. So let's see how this is going to work. Okay, so now we'll bring this over into the visualization area. So if we click on this, we now have the all the line work and the modeling part completed. So now we have all this geometry in here. So now it's a matter of applying some color to how this is going to look. It'll help define some of these parts. I had set up this orange and I have this kind of a glossy gray. So let's start with that. You can go in and edit and you can change the colors and the finishes and all that. There's a whole series of different tools in here that you can do that to work on. So it's glossies and different materials. So this takes a little bit of experimenting to see how all this is going to work. And then we can also impose different lighting and backgrounds to that. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So this was just a shiny plastic orange. So if I click on this and hold it, I should be able to bring this over and I can drop it on a piece of geometry. So I'm going to drop that on the top closure. And I'm going to bring that over and do it on this bottom piece's closure. Set that up. I'm going to do the whole body and the label. I think it's all going to happen at once with this kind of a glossy grayish color. Put that on there. And now I'm going to select this label area. And it is now the glossy white. So I'm going to go to change. And what I'm going to do is put the orange on that. So if I take and select this, that should make that part orange. I think you can do that with faces also. So now I have, so I can rotate this around. So I have some reflective surfaces on here showing how this might work. This isn't that elaborate of a rendering, but it's just to start to show how to apply color. It would be nice to bring in some graphics and put it on that oval. I don't think Shaper is to the point where they can do that yet. So we're going to have to do that in another program, even Illustrator or Photoshop or something to bring that in there. But this is a start to how to get this to work. So maybe someday we can start bringing in graphics. That would be ideal, perfect for the kinds of functions that we want to have. Okay, so now that is set in there, and that's under, we have the material, environment, and camera. They've reduced it down to these three categories. So let's go to environment and see what this means. So this is the default that we're in here. So I'm just going to click on a couple of these so we can take a look at it. So transparent is basically just making it so there is no background at this point. And they have, so this color mode. So once we go in here, we can go under this tool here and we can start to play with how this works. I mean, we have light rotation, so you can see how the light is now going to reflect around the object. So this is pretty basic. We're basically just looking at our light source and moving it around the object. So it's a little limiting with rendering, but it's not bad. We have a nice sort of look. And then we have our light intensity. We can make this quite a bit brighter. So we get like this nice bright contrast. And then this ground plane is the shadow. So we can turn that off or not. So it's just our object. Then we can export these as images. So let's go back, and there are a whole series of different backgrounds here. I haven't used a lot of these, but some of these create some really nice high contrast. And again, if I go in here with this mode, I can start to move my lighting around. I use a program where I have essentially a full photo studio where I have control of every single light. I have the color of every light, the intensity, whether it's dropping shadows or not. It's a lot more control. So some of the more sophisticated or more evolved programs give you more control. And that's what makes them confusing and frustrating. And that's why Sharper is so amazing. They did bring it, they pared it down to a simpler interface, and it's really, really good. It's not bad. So you just have to experiment with how some of these are going to work. There's a whole series of different things to do here. So let's just go back to this one, see how that looks. Let me just move the lighting around a little. Let's get a nice bright. This doesn't have too much reflectivity, so I don't like that one. I like it with a little bit of, there we go, a little bit of that highlight. So this takes a little bit of practice and moving it around to get this feel. So let's make believe we like something like that, and I'm going to go okay. Now we do have camera, which gets involved with sort of our cone of vision or our perspective. Field of view is what they call here. So you see, I'm getting some perspective and different kind of parallax issues, like we're using a camera. Aperture, I haven't figured out what that does yet. Then blur intensity, probably if we have a little more depth of field, we'll have some of that. So right now the field of view seems to be the big part. So that's it. So we can export this like you did the other one. You can export this into like a JPEG or any kind of a drawing, and you can open that. So I think they use the camera to capture this. So you can basically take a picture of this, and then you can crop it out and use it as an image. Okay, so that's just starting to introduce the visualization part of the program and applying some color and materials.